Animals have been living with us for thousands of years. The first domesticated animal was a dog, or a tamed wolf to be exact. The earliest dog bones discovered in Belgium in 2008 are from 31,700 years ago. Later, people understand that having animal nearby is much more pleasant and comfortable than living without them. And one by one, different species were tamed and then domesticated. We continue doing this even in present times. Let's have a look at 10 animals that many people around the world are used to seeing every day. 10. A fluffy purring friend. As you can guess, cat-human relationship has a very long history. All modern cats come from their wild ancestors from North Africa and Southwest Asia. And there is an evidence that cats had been living near humans long before they were domesticated. Scientists analyzed the DNA of more than 200 cats within the last 9,000 years, including ancient Romanian cat remains, Egyptian cat mummies, and modern African wildcat specimens. The study showed that cats likely started hanging around farming lands in Middle East about 8,000 years ago. Mice and rats came to the places where human cultivated crops, so the cats did. Not humans took these cute things into the cages. It looks like these unbelievable beauties just decided to domesticate themselves someday. The next humans and cats met in the ancient Egypt, where the fluffy creatures were really domesticated. After that, were brought around the world on merchant ships. In Europe, cats appeared in Roman times. 9. A big-eared savage. There is a great argument about domestication of an elephant because, from the scientific point of view, elephants have never been domesticated. The animal is considered domesticated if it has been selectively bred by humans for at least 12 generations. Besides, domesticated animals differ greatly from their wild relatives from an anatomical point of view. But in spite of 3,000-year history of human using elephants, all of them are wild creatures. The first records about tamed elephants date back up to the period of Indus Valley civilization. Firstly, elephants are trained for taking part in war. They were a valuable military force in both India and North Africa. Of course, elephants were also used as beasts of burden. As elephants are still wild, they need special training. And while the giant may give in to the correct training, it is never truly tamed. A male elephant, for example, can be sometimes aggressive and difficult to control. That's why most elephants that are trained for domestic use are females. 8. A nomadic people helper. In fact, the reindeer is the only deer species that was domesticated. To be more precise, reindeers are semi-domesticated because there are large herds of these animals that are wild and continue to freely roam along Alaska and other regions. But domesticated and wild reindeer are a bit different. The domestic one has an earlier breeding season, it is smaller, and have a less strong urge to migrate than their wild relatives. As scientists say, reindeer were first domesticated in eastern Russia between from 3,000 to 1,000 years ago. Studies on reindeer DNA made by Norwegian scientist Knut Roed shows that there were two separate domestications of reindeers in eastern Russia and Fennoscandia, meaning Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Reindeer likely were easy to domesticate. They were docile and trustful, allowing people groom, pet, and milk them. They were also easy to use in pulling sleds, cooperating wildly with experienced drivers. Reindeer do it now, being an important part of the life of Arctic nomadic peoples, such as the Sami, for example. 7. Not a pig and nor from Guinea. Guinea pigs are also called cavies, and originally they were native to the South America. Scientists believe that domestication occurred between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago in the Andes. Firstly, the ancient people bred them for food. These rodents reproduced rapidly and had large litters. Besides, they had them as pets and sometimes offered as sacrifices to their gods. But why Guinea? And why pig? No one really knows. Some scientists say that this name may come from the price of a guinea pig in 16th century England, when it was introduced to Europe. It cost just 1 guinea. As for the word pig, there is an opinion that this name came from the sound these creatures make. In England, guinea pigs became popular pets among Elizabethan society. 6. 1 or 2 humps of stamina. We all know that camels can be with 1 or 2 humps. The Bactrian camel with 2 humps lives in Central Asia, mainly Mongolia and China. And the dromedary camel with 1 hump, which is found in North Africa, Arabia, and the Middle East. The dromedary had been domesticated in the region of Arabia by 1800 before Christ. Confirming this fact, Middle Bronze Age remains were found in ancient urban sites in Israel. Later, they got into North Africa, the Nile Valley, the Middle East, and northwestern India. As for Bactrian camel, there is much less information. But by the 6th century before Christ, Bactrians were domesticated in Persia. For their long history, camels have been used in military expeditions. For example, the French Saharan Camel Corps took part in some missions during the 19th century. About 3 million camels participated in World War I and 50,000 in World War II. Camels are also a resource of milk, wool, and even meat. Camels still play a very important role in desert countries as beasts of burden. For instance, the dromedary is capable to carry 600 pounds for 30 miles in a day. A Bactrian can carry up to 1,000 pounds. 5. An earliest horned supporter. Goats were among the first domesticated animals. They have come from wild bezoar ibex in Eastern Asia. It happened between 10,000 and 11,000 years ago when Neolithic farmers in the Near East started keeping small herds of ibexes. They used them for milk, meat, and other parts as they used all the materials for clothing and building: hair, bone, skin, and sinew. Later, goat skin was used for water and wine bottles in both traveling and transporting wine for sale. As archaeologists say, there were 2 distinct places of goat domestication. Once it happened in the Euphrates River Valley in Turkey 11,000 years ago, and the second one was in the Zagros Mountains of Iran 10,000 years ago. But these 2 are not the only ones. The DNA tests show the modern goat has developed as a result of the domestication of many different populations of wild goat. 4. A get-into-everywhere smart lad. Most ferrets were domesticated 2,500 years ago when they were bred from European polecats or steppe polecats. The first reason to domesticate ferrets was to prevent expanding rats, mice, and rabbits because they made great damage to the crops and stores. Cats were too big to get into a small barrow to follow a rat, but ferrets did this without any problems. There is some evidence that ferrets were used even for hunting rabbits. Ferrets became very popular in Europe. In 1200, they came to Germany and England. There, church officials held ferrets because of their high price. People realized that ferrets are extremely useful and started keeping them on ships, where they, as usual, caught rat and mice. This way, they got into the North America in the 18th century. Besides, people used ferrets for transporting cables through pipes in many facilities. So, these fluffy creatures played a great role in human history. 3. A black and yellow honey giver. Of course, this insect wasn't really domesticated, but humans learned how to deal with them. It happened in Anatolia about 8,500 years ago. And the only reason for all of this is honey, of course. The earliest documented use of honey dates back to the Upper Paleolithic, about 25,000 years ago. Then, our ancestors collected it from wild bees. The most famous ancient beekeepers were the Egyptians. They kept them in the bees and clay jars and collected the honey, wax, and propolis. They used honey for food, to hold together wicks, and in their medicines. Beekeeping or apiculture was popular in ancient Rome and Greece. In early 1600s, Europeans brought honeybees to America. Now, honeybees and their product are used in many different ways. 2. A red tricker. I know that you imagine foxes being wild animals, and they really are, but there are some fox species that were really domesticated. In 1955, Soviet scientist Dmitry Belyaev started secretly experimenting and breeding a domesticated fox in the Institute of Cytology and Genetics at Novosibirsk, Siberia. And he managed to do that. Later, there appeared domesticated Siberian silver foxes. These domesticated foxes have between 30 and 35 generations of selective breeding behind them. There are other fox species that are now popular among pet keepers. For example, fennec fox, which is adorable. But most foxes go on living in the wild. 1. Sharp-eared wild cats. Keeping wild cats as pets is very popular today. Servals are the most favorable ones. But the history background of breeding these cats is very sad. Servals come from Africa, where they have been exterminated for many years because of their fur. Their number decreased dramatically, and poor cat got into red list. But not long ago, some people found out that servals are easily tamed and can be kept at home. So, breeders all around the world began selecting kittens for future life with humans. Of course, it is too early to talk about domestication of servals, but breeders work on this problem actively, and now have several kittens in 15th generation. Nevertheless, servals are probably one of the most popular exotic cats kept in the US. Having such pet requires a lot of money, as these cuties are very expensive. We are very happy that long time ago, our ancestors decided that living without animals nearby is too dull and not comfortable. Thanks to this, now a lot of marvelous creatures make our lives better. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you!